What a headshot! What a head!
How's it guys, this is Dayvy, FPL, and welcome back to the Fantasy Premier League video here on my channel. Now in this video, I'll be taking you guys through my very own wildcard draft for the upcoming Game Week 26. I know I might be using the chip, I might not be. Please don't activate the chip before those FA Cup games happen tonight, as well as tomorrow night, where we will be hopefully getting the draw. But it doesn't really hurt anyone to plan a draft right now. I'm going to probably plan it on the more likely outcomes of the FA Cup anyways, so this information will still be valid if you guys are watching this late in the week. Now, as with every wildcard draft, I'll be going over the fixtures first, but I'll also be discussing chip strategy because that is quite integral. Then after that, we're going to be going over the financials of the wildcard team before looking at a team selection going into the upcoming Game Week 26. So that's something you guys are interested in? Sit back, relax, and let's get straight into it. So if you guys are choosing to wildcard in Game Week 26, let's talk about chip strategy first of all. I think it's super integral if you guys are looking to activate the wildcard this week, next week, even in the future. You have to kind of look at the plan of the other chips. So the two big game weeks for me are going to be Game Week 28 and Game Week 29 if you guys choose to use the wildcard in Game Week 26, because both these two game weeks could be chip worthy. Game Week 28, the biggest blank of this season from now till Game Week 38. You guys could really use a free hit in that week if you wanted to. What this will allow you to do is plan for the double game weeks on either side and ignore blank Game Week 28 completely. So I do think Game Week 28 is probably the biggest decision that you guys have to make if you guys do choose to wildcard this week. Now in this video, I'll be going through kind of a combination of not free hitting and free hitting, but once those FA Cup games do finish tonight and tomorrow, you guys can make a better decision on that. Then finally, double Game Week 29, the biggest double probably of the season. Maybe Game Week 34 might also be quite big, but double Game Week 29 could be the week that you guys choose to use the bench boost. So therefore, if you guys are going to choose to use the bench boost, when you wildcard, one have a stacked bench. So when the time arises for you to activate the chip, your bench looks pretty nice. So these two game weeks you guys have to focus on, not only because of the players and the fixtures, but also what chips are you guys going to use. So now we've gone over the chips and the strategy that you guys will be using. Let's go over the fixtures. I always say the fixtures are the bread and butter of any kind of draft, whether it be a free hit, a wild card. So let's go over them according to Ben Crellin. So once again, shout out to Ben Crellin. Go follow him over on Twitter if you guys haven't. He's a must follow if you guys are on FPL Twitter, and probably the best resource we have in the FPL community. So please ignore double Game Week 25, that's going to be the first column there, that's the game week that we currently are in. Let me know if you guys are hoping for a Darwin hat-trick now that he's been confirmed to be training. But let's be honest, you're probably going to get a 2-pointer. So for Game Week 26, that's going to be the wildcard week, obviously a nice little single game week. We then have double Game Week 27, blank Game Week 28, double Game Week 29, and then blank Game Week 32. Now if you guys are going to use the wildcard this week, I'd probably focus up till about Game Week 29. I think there's enough doubles to kind of get that value out of the wildcard chip. And once you get that FA Cup draw, you can then look at Game Week 32 and see how many options you actually do own. So the big thing about wildcarding in Game Week 26 is the fact that the teams that double that you would want, Brighton and Brentford in Game Week 27's double, have relatively nice fixtures in Game Week 26. Fulham at home for Brentford, West Ham at home for Brighton. You can jump off these Liverpool assets, they face United this week. Jump on the United assets that face Liverpool this week. And then you're getting into Game Week 27 and 29's doubles looking pretty fine. Now the big span in the works is going to be that Game Week 28 free hit. But what you guys can choose to do is get a little bit of a combination kind of team. You might not have 11 starters for blank Game Week 28, but you guys might decide it's not worth it to have 11 starters, and that might maximize the two doubles on either side. So for example, what I'm saying there is let's just say that you go for 3 Brentford, 3 Brighton, that's 6 players in Game Week 28 that won't feature, but then have a double in the following game week. But if you guys do choose to use the free hit, it will make your life a lot easier, as you can simply ignore the kind of caveat of that blank game week. Now what I will add is that if you guys choose to save the free hit in Game Week 28, it might come in handy. Blank Game Week 32 might be quite a hard week to navigate without a chip, but also you could use it in Game Week 34 to get the best double game week team as possible. So just some food for thought there in terms of the chip strategy. As I've mentioned, the FA Cup games will make things a lot clearer, but nothing's going to change between the doubles in 27 and Game Week 29. Now I've already spoken about double Game Week 29 and teams to focus on. Teams like Leicester have a great double game week, United have a relatively fine double, Liverpool have a tough double, so if you want to keep them for blank Game Week 28 then jump off, that could be a switch to do. But overall I actually do like the strategy. You guys are taking advantage of 2 double game weeks, getting a fine team for blank Game Week 28 if you're going to go chipless, and then you're still saving that free hit for later in the season where you might actually use it on a double game week. But don't worry, we'll be coming back to this and referring to these fixtures as we go along the team, as it might be a little bit long for me to go over each team and talk about their fixtures. So now going on to the financials of the team setup, you guys will see there's no kind of 3-4-3 formation here. We're going for a 5-5-3. So this will obviously include those bench options. Now what I want to add is that I did have 4.3 million left in the bank when I made this wildcard drafts. Yes, a significant amount of money that you guys can choose to upgrade these departments, if so be it. But now going on to our goalkeeper pairings, and as mentioned, I've gone for a kind of combination of a Freet and a non-Freet team, but the goalkeepers are definitely going to be Freet 28 dependent, as I've gone for Raya from Brentford and Danny Ward from Leicester. So both these two options do blank, but if you guys don't want to go for the Freet, you can always go for Kepa over Danny Ward. A lot of money in the bank, so you guys can make that upgrade, but I do like the combination of Raya and Ward as you are saving some money. I just think with Danny Ward has a nice double for that bench boost in 29, whereas Raya has great fixtures, obviously Brentford having back-to-back doubles if you exclude blank gaming 28. And overall defensively they aren't too bad. There are other options that you guys can look at, but I do prefer these sides. But as mentioned, go for Kepa instead of Danny Ward if you don't want to free it in 28. Now moving on to the defensive department, and the first player might be slightly more controversial, but haven't seen him in too many wildcard drafts. It's Kieran Trippier at 5.6 million. So yes, 5.6 million. I think if you buy him now, he's about 6.0. But this is the price that I currently have him in my team. Now the nice thing about Kieran Trippier is that he actually has a bad game week, and I know it's a little bit of a weird thing to say, but when you guys do see the team, a massive amount of benching headaches are going to be on the cards, so being able to bench him with that tough fixture is actually a little bit of a nice thing. Now Kieran Trippier does play in blank game week 28, has a lovely fixture against Nottingham Forest away, so if you guys don't choose to use the Freet, he's a must have in your team. Relatively fine double game week 29, not the best in the world, but not the worst in the world, but the one thing that is slightly worrying about Newcastle is they dip off in defensive form. But I backed them to get back on that kind of clean sheet way of things, and that's why I think Trippier would still stay in my team. Next up is going to be Luke Shaw at 5.3 million, so I've just transferred him out. I'm bringing him back in my team. I just think you guys have to go for those United assets with a lovely double in 29. Now yes, they're probably going to blank in game week 28, so Luke Shaw could be one of those benched options. But still, I think the fixtures on either side of the blank look pretty fine. The next up is going to be Gabriel, a player that does feature in blank game week 28. Yes, Arsenal don't have the best kind of doubles coming up. Don't even have a double in 29. But I think from a defensive point of view, Arsenal are pretty solid. Not only are they solid defensively, but they have some great fixtures coming up, so I would go for the best Arsenal defender, and that's Gabriel at 5.2. Now we're going to kind of double up on our Brentford defense. We're going to go for Ben Mee. I think you guys have to go for a kind of combination of Brighton and Brentford on this wild card, as obviously they have the 2 doubles in 3 game weeks. Now Ben Mee is slightly more expensive than the other kind of Brentford defenders, but I do like his attacking threat, and that's why I'm willing to pay 5.0 because I have so much money in the bank. Then finally we have Lewis Dunk, so Brighton, like Brentford, have back-to-back doubles. If you guys disregard blank game week 28, and I think a Brighton defender is a mainstay. Now out of the other options, Estupiñán could be a replacement. I've gone for Dunk here because there's been a little bit of injury concern for his game in the FA Cup. But now going into our midfield department, and we don't necessarily have kind of a more premium midfielder. Don't have a Mo Salah, don't have a De Bruyne. Our most expensive midfielder to go for is going to be Bruno Fernandes. So he comes in at 5.8 million, and Bruno has been having a relatively fine season. Not the kind of most standout season, but at his price point, with those lovely fixtures coming up, I don't mind taking a punt. He has treated me pretty well when I have owned him this season, and that's why I don't really mind bringing him into my team. Another player that's been pretty reliable is going to be Bukayo Saka from Arsenal. So like Gabriel, yes, they don't have a double in 29, but Arsenal are pretty consistent, playing blank game week 28, and the fixtures look simply outstanding. So I definitely have at least one Arsenal attacker. If you guys want to go for Odegaard and Ketcher, that's fine. But with the money in the bank, Saka, you have no excuse not to get him. Same could be said about the next option. Rashford, like Bruno, has great fixtures on paper, great form at the moment. Can't honestly say there'll be any wildcard team without Rashford in their lineup. And as a Liverpool fan, that does hurt me slightly. The only bad thing about Rashford is obviously that blank in 28, but if you guys do choose to use the Freet, he's a no-brainer. Then next up, I think a lot of people are going to be going for this on the wildcard. Instead of going for double Brighton defense, we've gone for double Brighton midfield, and I've gone for McAllister and Matoma. Now between Solly March and Matoma, it's quite close, but I do actually like the punt on McAllister, playing at that cam slot under the new manager. So all 3 options between March, McAllister, and also Matoma come in around the same price, so it really is kind of a close call between them. Now I guess there could be some concerns about going for 2 Brighton midfielders versus 2 Brighton defenders, but overall their defense hasn't been too great this season. Now finally moving into our forward department, and yet another kind of single game week 29 option, it's going to be Erling Haaland. Now Haaland does have Liverpool at home in game week 29, and if you guys have been watching Liverpool at the moment, defensively all over the place, so Haaland could absolutely feast. I just think his effective ownership and his ownership as a whole is just simply too strong, and with all the money in the bank, there's no excuse not to get him. But if you guys do want to go differential, this might be one of the plays to go for. Don't go for a Haaland, go for another asset with probably a double game week 29. Talking about doubles, we're going to go for Ivan Toney. So yes, I know at the moment he has the yellow card suspension, also has the betting suspension coming up, but both those 2 events are a little bit hard to predict. So I'm fine with going for him because in game week 27, you'd hope that he doesn't get that yellow card suspension, and then has a nice double game week. So at 7.6 million, a very kind of high owned option I would expect on a wild card. So a little bit of a no-brainer. In the final asset, I've included Ollie Watkins here. You guys have seen that he's been scoring, I think in the last 4 games he's scored 4 goals. So his record recently has been pretty decent. Now Aston Villa, the big thing about them is they do play in blank game week 28. They never find double going into 29. But as you guys can see, I've kind of given you a little bit of a combination of the Freet in 28 and the non-Freet in 28. Just beware of the goalkeepers as mentioned earlier on, but I wanted to give you guys a template that both the chip users in 28 and non-chip users in 28 could use. Let me know in the comments down below what you guys think about this draft, where are the improvements that you guys would make, where would you spend that 4.3 million, or would you actually downgrade one of these assets? Let me know in the comments down below. But now finally going on to the actual team selection going into Game Week 26, and first things first guys, the spoiler alert here, you guys would have seen on the previous talking point, an absolutely stacked starting 15, and therefore actually the benching dilemmas are going to be quite rough. But I guess that's one of the things that you guys have to take into account. Having that bench boost in a few game weeks time might cause you to have some benching dilemmas, but I guess you take them on the chin. So confirmation about the money in the bank there, £4.3 million left in the bank, a massive amount of money, but you guys don't need it. You would have seen the team look simply fine. So let's start off on our bench, and the players that I've benched for the upcoming game week are going to be Danny Ward, Lewis Dunk, McAllister and Trippier. Now that West Ham at home game is a pretty fine one for Brighton, but I do see them conceding a goal in that one, and that's why I've actually benched Dunk over my other defenders. McAllister versus Matoma, super close call between those two. I would only play one, unless you think that Brighton will score a few goals. Trippier is a no-brainer as he does face Man City, whereas Danny Ward versus Raya might be a little bit of a more interesting debate. So if Mitrovic is going to be out for this fixture, I think that he should be back for the FA Cup in tonight's game, but if that he does get injured again, then I do favour Raya, but Danny Ward's a perfect replacement. Between these two, the fixtures are quite close, but I am favouring the home fixture, and that's how Raya's in my starting 11. Moving on to the defence, I've got Luke Shaw against Liverpool. You guys could go for Lewis Dunk if you think this is a better kind of odds, but I think United are looking great defensively. The one thing to note though is that please just make sure that Luke Shaw is back for the weekend, as there have been some rumours of a potential injury. We then have Gabriel against Bournemouth at home, great fixture on paper. As you guys would have known from the Ultimate Guides, Bournemouth's XG is pretty bad, and Arsenal's XG conceded is pretty good. Then finally Ben Mee against Fulham, same with Ray. You guys might want to split the odds here, actually go for a dunk, and not double up on that defence. Then the midfield department, Bruno and Rashford as Liverpool away, great fixture on paper, pains me to say as a Liverpool fan, but defensively we're all over the place. I can honestly see a few goals in this one for them. Then we have Saka against Bournemouth, great fixture, might even be a captaincy consideration if you guys want to go for him. And then finally Matoma, but between Matoma and McAllister, it's a really close call. Then going to our forward line, we have Haaland against Newcastle at home, tough game but a very big game in terms of the title push. There's no complaints about Ivan Toney and Watkins with lovely fixtures against Fulham at home and Crystal Palace at home respectively. So in terms of the bench, yes, this week might not be the worst kind of benching dilemmas. I guess it depends on how Brighton play, but right now I do have two of their options on my bench. Then in terms of the starting 11, looks pretty stacked. In terms of camps, you guys can go for anyone you want. Could be a Saka, could be a Rashford, could be an Erling Haaland, if you want to go a little bit safer. But let me know what your guys' thoughts are in the comments down below of this team. I'm pretty sure there might be those of you that are already planning to use the wildcard. Let me know your current draft in the comments down below, and don't roast me too much. But that's the video guys, hope you did enjoy it. Please like if you didn't subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. I'll be seeing you guys for the team selection coming up on Thursday, but also an update to the chip strategy coming up tomorrow after the FA Cup games tonight. But I'm myself, Dayvy FPL, and I'm out. Cheers, bye.